All right, so we're on, and hello everyone. This is the third office hours for the KubeSlice project, and today we have Eric with us, who is basically going to walk us through the roadmap. But before that, I would like Eric to introduce himself because I do a botched up job of introducing people. So I am going to hand it over to you, Eric, and please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Divya. Yeah, hi. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm responsible for engineering here at Avacia, and it's been a fun and interesting journey as we've sort of taken Avacia from just a collection of slides into something we can actually deploy and put out in the community and hopefully start taking it to customers. Yeah, looking forward to going through this with you. And we're calling this roadmap. It's really sort of the roadmap of sort of things we think would be great to get help from the community on. And it's a start, but there's a lot of things beyond even this that we can talk about. So I guess with that, why don't I just...
So before you go for that, Eric is a very modest guy. He has a huge background on routing. He is from Arista, Juniper, different backgrounds from the routing space and networking space. He's a great asset for all of you guys to learn something from him on routing areas or networking areas. I mean, who you can get any better than Eric. So please, he is always on the channel. He will respond when needed.
Thanks, Prasad.
Just one PSA before we go ahead. I've put this on the chat as well that any questions for Eric or Prasad or anyone, please leave it on the chat. We will get to it at the end of the session. The reason being we want to maintain the flow, and it's easy to break the flow when you're constantly answering questions in between the session. So any questions that you have, I will try to get to them towards the end of the session. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time. But that being said, again, over to you, Eric. I'm so sorry about that, but over to you.
No, sounds good. All right, so why don't I try sharing my screen? There we go. All right, does everyone see that?
Yep.
So, good. Yeah, so we want to talk about, well, for starters, let's just talk about KubeSlice a bit. I'm not sure how aware everyone is of what's going on, so just sort of a brief review on KubeSlice. So first off, the fundamental things we're trying to address with KubeSlice is that we're adding multi-cluster connectivity to Kubernetes as well as multi-tenancy for Kubernetes. So what we're trying to show in this picture, by the way, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but we have two slices here spanning two or more clusters. Really, we can span n clusters. And within a given cluster, you identify a set of resources and ultimately a set of namespaces that you want to join this thing we call a slice. And the slice is able to, it can function within a cluster. So if you have a single cluster, you can still segment resources onto slices within that single cluster. But then you can extend that cluster or extend the slice across multiple clusters. And one of the first things that we do when we do this, we have an overlay network that we put in place. And by putting the applications onto that overlay network, it gives us a way to avoid any overlapping address issues that may be occurring. Depending on what environments you've worked in, different clouds have different policies when it comes to the addressing they choose to associate with a cluster. And there's one cloud in particular that I know of that chooses to use the same addresses on every cluster. And so when it comes to interconnecting them, there can be address overlapping problems. So KubeSlice solves that by putting this overlay in place and letting you communicate on top of that. Essentially what that does is it makes all the applications that are part of that same slice reachable, at least for the ones that you choose to. You can export a given service from one cluster to any other clusters. And that makes it so that from the perspective of the application, it's just another service. There's a DNS entry for that service wherever it is. The application tries to talk to it, and when it does that, it'll just be routed across whatever intercluster topology you have into the remote cluster where that service is being provided. And again, when it comes to multi-cluster connectivity in the Kubernetes world, there are multiple ways to do this. An alternate way is by going through external firewalls, essentially what we call north-south connectivity. So you sort of go out the cluster and come back in the remote cluster. And to do that, you have to be going through firewalls and API gateways, and there's just added complexity when it comes to putting that in place. So basically, we're trying to make it easier both for the operator and for the application developer. Again, from the perspective of an application, you just have a service that just looks like any other DNS service, and you go talk to it, and the overlay network will route the traffic there. So we believe we have a lower cost option by doing this because, again, you don't need those firewalls. And it's possible to deploy MTLS, and we're going to talk about that more later, but it helps to let you ensure that your applications that are extended across multiple clusters are still actually who you think they are. Again, so what we're trying to solve with all this is first make a secure way to easily connect these applications. Going in and out through a lot of firewalls, there can be a lot of mistakes. It's sort of easy to screw that up. So we're by making it appear to the applications as if they're all connected on the same overlay network, it's easy for them to securely talk to each other. We're trying to make things very observable. So as you have application traffic that is potentially hopping from cluster to cluster, you want to be able to see where it's going, check the performance of it. One of the typical use cases we talk about is, say, deploying things from a cloud to an edge. And when you do that, it might make sense for certain applications to be deployed at the edge so they can deliver their service with lower latency to an end customer. So increasing the visibility on what traffic is going where so that you can choose to deploy your applications in the right place is a key aspect of the observability. We talk about multi-tenancy, and this is the ability to essentially carve up the cluster resources and associate them with different orgs. That org could be just another team within the same company, or it could literally be different companies. One of the things that drives this is, for example, edge computing again, or like 5G cell site clusters. Places where the footprint is potentially small, and so the number of servers that could be deployed there is small, but the need to share those resources across multiple customers may be large. So the ability to carve up those resources and securely deploy applications from different organizations on the same infrastructure, it's much more cost effective that way. And in the end, this has to all be automatable. We have to be able to plug into any existing deployment model, make it easy to deploy things very quickly. One of our advantages, again, is once you've got your clusters in place, we make it easy to connect them in minutes. And solving that address overlapping problem is an important piece. Makes it much simpler because we take care of that for you. So that's sort of a quick overview of what KubeSlice is doing. So getting on to today's discussion, contribution roadmap. So we wanted to talk a little bit about things that we think are both useful when it comes to advancing KubeSlice, and also kind of cool and fun when it comes to just doing some of these setups. I'll jump away from the slides for just a second here. Over in the KubeSlice project, there is this KubeSlice roadmap, and we've put a collection of ideas in place here things that are interesting projects that someone could pick up and start to extend. There's sort of good ways to get familiar with KubeSlice. Like I said, it's valuable for us to get these examples in place. It's useful both for someone who's learning KubeSlice, but also for our customers to see how things are deployed. So it'd be great if we can get some help on that. So I will jump back then and talk a bit about what goes on there. So the examples repository that we have inside KubeSlice, I think some of you may have tried it already. There's a kind.sh that's in there. And what kind.sh is trying to do is set up this default topology. It creates a 3-cluster topology of kind clusters. And one of them is configured as the KubeSlice multi-cluster controller. And then the other 2 are configured as KubeSlice workers. And then we have a couple example applications that are deployed in there. And if I jump back here for a second. So under examples kind, there's currently a book info example. Book info is it's a public open source demo app that's part of the Istio community. And so we have an example that deploys here. And it looks like this. You know, we have, the product page is the front end for that application. And then there's a collection of reviews pages and details and ratings. And again, these are just a collection of microservices that serve as an example application. The green dots are showing essentially a green slice. So we configure a slice to interconnect these, and then you can come in remotely and talk to the front end product page and access all of these services because they're connected on the slice. So that's sort of what's there now. But it's a little simplistic too. What we would really like to see with this book info is, it comes from the Istio community. Our example is not deploying it with Istio. And it would make a ton of sense to do that. And then as part of that, it would make sense to deploy these applications with MTLS and be able to ensure, demonstrate to a customer that it's easy to deploy this and ensure that even when you're going across multi-cluster boundaries, the identity of the microservices you're talking to is being ensured. So let me just walk through, again, if you're not familiar with Istio, talk about that a bit. So Istio is a service mesh, and it's normally deployed in a single cluster. And it takes all of the services that you want to relate together. It provides some infrastructure so that they can communicate with each other. It provides some observability features so that you can track which pod is talking to which other pod, how much traffic is going there. Makes it very easy to see what's going on. And it provides some certificate management capabilities so that essentially you're able to, again, ensure that when an application has been broken into many microservices and distributed, across various nodes in a cluster, or in our case, distributed across maybe many clusters, that you're still talking to the applications you think you're talking to and ensuring that level of service or security. Just a little background on the Istio data plane. Again, you have what's really going on is you have some ingress traffic that's feeding in. Traffic goes through these sidecars that wind up getting attached to the services that are running within each pod. And the service mesh is aware of each of these pods and knows how to sort of stitch them all together. So it defines that overall topology. And it provides visibility into what traffic is going on in each of these hops. And again, this is an important thing for us to be able to show our customers. This is literally the classic picture right off the Istio website. And it shows how the book info app is broken down. And with a true Istio deployment of this, each of these pods, again, has the Envoy sidecar and security is being maintained through MTLS. So what we'd like some help with, again, one of these first examples here, kind example, book info, Istio, MTLS, 2 clusters, is to set up the book info example. And again, we sort of have this example now. It just doesn't have Istio and it doesn't have MTLS. But can you extend it? And it's sort of a cool chance to play with KubeSlice as well as get familiar with Istio and some of these other technologies. And basically go through the process of attaching Istio and all of the certificate management that goes with MTLS, so that when the traffic comes in through the product page and is distributed to these other entities, that we're ensuring that all of them are really who they say they are. This example again is a single slice. Conceivably, we could do multiple slices. You could imagine having multiple different book infos spread across multiple different slices in the same environment. So there's some freedom here to play with it in a way that's interesting to you too. Brief word on the certificate management. Again, this certificates are a way to ensure that when you go and talk to something that it's actually who you think it is. I'm sure you've all seen this when you talk to your bank or something like that. But when an application is broken down into a bunch of microservices and distributed in multiple places, it's sort of not good enough just to prove that when you talk to the front end that you're talking to the right front end. You also need to ensure that as that front end directs you to other pages and other services, that each of them is really still a representative element of that originating application. And so there's the certificate management piece that goes with this. And again, Istio can help with that, with the appropriate certificate configuration. The act of stitching together all of these applications within the Istio flow, Istio will manage the certificates and ensure all that connectivity is correct. And like I said, there's other ways you can sort of play with this. The kind.sh example, as it's out there today, deploys a controller cluster and 2 worker clusters. If you were going to try and extend it to 3 clusters, there's a couple dimensions here. You could add a 3rd worker cluster, or you could actually deploy a worker cluster in the same cluster as the controller. That's, again, the way some of our customers use it. So there's an opportunity there to sort of get to be more familiar with KubeSlice config and how you can deploy it, as well as, again, extending not just between 2 clusters, but a 3rd or maybe a 4th if you want to pull the details into a 4th one. So an opportunity to sort of learn about how really extending across multiple clusters can work. Again, it's the same applications and it's the same Istio, just deployed in another way. And I'll stop there for 1 second. Jumping back here again, sort of the examples we're calling out that would be helpful are book info extended with Istio and MTLS in both 2 and 3 clusters. Adding API gateways. If I jump back here, I'm not sure I mentioned this on the previous slide, but having an API gateway to act as an ingress into an Istio application is a common way that things get deployed. So having an example that shows that would be cool. And Contour is a popular ingress gateway. So making up an example that shows Contour would be another good one. And in the end, we're looking for people to feel creative too. You can take there's a number of open source applications out there. You may have one that you like, and it might be interesting to see how it deploys across multiple clusters, how it may run that way. We're phrasing this all in terms of kind, just because that's an easy way for you to do this with few resources. But again, KubeSlice runs in any Kubernetes environment. So we can interconnect the clouds, Amazon, Google, Azure, IBM, Oracle, others, all the way down to edge sites or private data centers. So this can be a good way to sort of get familiar with how an application can be deployed in really many places. That's sort of one class of things we'd like help with. The final class that I'll just sort of point out is our CI/CD pipeline. Of course, here at Avacia, we have an internal CI/CD pipeline that we track for our infrastructure. But as part of the community, now that we've open sourced this product, we'd like to expand on that. When a contributor adds something, whether it's to the open source examples or to the open source product itself, in the controller or any of the worker operators, good practice is someone can do a build and thoroughly test. They need to be able to verify that what they're doing isn't breaking anything, and then when it passes, be able to contribute a new test to verify their new function, but also verify that everything that they've been doing has not broken anything else and no regressions. And ultimately that gets published into artifacts and eventually deployed. So if you happen to come from a testing background, if you're sort of interested in contributing, but maybe more a little on the test side than on the example development side, we're interested in getting some help here too. So it would be great to get any thoughts you have or any efforts you might be able to put out in that space. And so with that,
I just had a question, Eric. So if anybody wants to actually, sorry, I think my video is off for some reason. But yeah, so I just had a question, and I think everyone else has it here too, that should we want to work on any of these, how exactly should we go about, assigning ourselves? Are there issues created, or somewhere where we can go and claim a particular piece of work within these specific issues that are there on the roadmap?
Yeah, I think the thing to do is, so this is, I'm looking at github.com org's KubeSlice projects for, it's called KubeSlice Roadmap. And, you should be able to jump in here and feel free to grab something. That's a good start. Obviously, you can send something on the Slack chat if you want to talk about something first. But yeah, if you want to grab something on here, feel free to take it. We have, hold on, let me put the labels in here. So these are all things that we think are good first issues. And so if someone's interested, I'd say feel free to jump in and grab something. And again, reach out on the Slack channel if you have questions about something or if you need any guidance or input. I think we'd like to help move this ahead. Any other questions?
I think, Rick, you can show it in the table view also so that they can move it to the board view. Yeah. So you can take this and then move it to that, and then you want to break it into PRs. We're more than happy to have that create into a PRs, Divya, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So the first thing that I think would be for everyone to go check out the board and see if they're comfortable doing any of the issues or picking up any of them based on their skill set. And then we can go ahead and, start working on them via PRs. And of course, everyone here is willing to help. So it's just a matter of asking. with that being said, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask, because that was the only one question that I could think of. So if there are any questions from the rest of the audience, please feel free to ask Eric. And I think we'd all be very happy to answer them.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone has questions, feel free to raise them.
So, how many of you are familiar with Istio? Or do you need some background on Istio, or you want to try it on Istio? So that is that too far-fetched for or somebody who's learning something on Istio?
So I'm completely new to HT. Actually, the new job that I'm joining has to be good. I have to learn it for that. So I have to like start learning all things on HT service mesh and I'm on dual proxy. So I sort of learn these.
Okay, Liam, I understand. Yeah, more than all of us are here to help you learn. I think Istio is very famous from a service to service standpoint. It is something which you can add to your portfolio of things which you are trying to do.
Yeah, it's a common tool that's out there in the industry, and so this is maybe a good way to play with it a little bit, get familiar with how it works, and help the KubeSlice community as well.
Avanisha has asked any recommendation for good playground and resources for Istio.
Well, so playground, I'm guessing you mean an environment in which we can, go and create KubeSlice. And so I understand there's been some issues with just getting access to an environment that has enough memory and enough storage to actually run all these clusters. So I think we are trying to get a better solution for that. Right now it's sort of, you need to find a VM that's got 8 gig and you can load all this into it. Where between Katacoda, Killer Coda, and a couple other options we're kicking around, we are trying to put together a sort of a playground, someplace where you can more easily reserve some time and go and deploy something. So stay tuned for that, I guess. We haven't actually got that deployed yet, but hopefully we'll do that, and that'll just make it a lot easier to get access to an environment where you can get those resources.
Yeah, no, I think from a starting point, Killer Coda has Istio and book info. If you guys want to play around with it, as I pointed out here, you can play around in Killer Coda already existing with Istio and book info.
Sure. Yeah, that's you can certainly learn Istio by playing with that. That's a good jump start.
Hi, Sujay here. I have a basic knowledge on Kubernetes, and is it that right away directly I can work on Istio? Will that be a right go, or and can I directly take the KubeSlice, the examples or the problems what it is shared in GitHub, or
Well, I guess my suggestion, if you were going to jump in, so you can start out even with just a single cluster. You can just take book info as it is, deploy it with Istio, sort of get the hang of what's involved in that. It sort of simplified the problem initially. Once you've played with that, you've got it deployed, you've probably done the MTLS stuff just with regular book info in a single cluster. Then you can extend it to multi-cluster and just take that piece and be able to push it to other locations.
yes, oh yeah, right. So first getting used, things getting done in for a single cluster will be a right go. Yeah.
I think that's a good start.
Good.
And I think there's actually some online examples of Istio deployments in the single cluster. So, that you can sort of get a jump start there by looking at what the Istio community has done.
Sure. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone in the audience?
I
Whether or not-
also,
yeah.
sorry, I also posted that there is a kind example of Istio in Istio, org. So I posted that link also. You can try it and find also. All right. All right. Yeah. I think if you guys have any question, we are more than happy to answer it in the Slack channel also.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that I think we're at the logical end of this office hours. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to ask on the Slack channel or even comment on the issues. I think I've pasted the links here. What I'll also do is, make a thread of these links on our on the thread for this today's office hours, so that you all have a ready reference, and it's not like with the office hours ending you all will lose it all. So I will thread it there, and you all can then basis your convenience and your skill level and your comfort level with KubeSlice and Istio pick up issues. So yeah, I mean, if there's nothing that's on anyone else's mind with respect to understanding Istio or KubeSlice or the roadmap, I'd be happy to punt this call. But just going out like for the last time, do you all have any questions for Eric or Prasad?
I would say countdown, going once, going twice, going thrice, and done.
All right. So
Right.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Prasad, for being on today, and thank you to the rest of the audience for being here. I shall make it a point to thread the resources on the Slack channel, and we'll see you for our next edition. Then. See ya. Goodbye.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Prasad.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you for hosting, Divya.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.